This movie is all about mapping. It's about mapping bitmaps onto surfaces and all the different ways that you can do that and some of the pitfalls and things you want to look for. And so here we go, and I'll try to cover as much about mapping as I can. The first and easiest way to map something for a render is to go to the View menu and do Picture Frame. Okay, and so I'm going to get a picture here. This happens to be a picture of a P-51 Mustang that Jeff High's brother Phil took. It's an awesome picture. And if we come over here and place the image, alright, we can go ahead and go to Render and really not do anything else. I'll go ahead and hit a ground plane here. Let's put this on gray. I always put my ground planes on gray. We'll go ahead and put white on it. And I'm a Blur Studio 2 fan, but anyway. So let's go ahead and just hit render. Alright, so there's a render, and that's the number one easiest way to map something. Okay, now, and you can do as many objects as you want, and that'll work. Oh, this is an interesting thing. This happens. There's nothing really to be done about it because we have to switch modes as to what is mapped to the object. If we go up to Edit and Object Properties, okay, this will bring up the Properties dialog box, and I'm just going to have to kind of move this around. Let's close that material editor. Okay, so if we go to Material and switch back to Basic, okay, then this is going to go to back to the bitmap that was placed on here. During the render to assign materials, we have to switch back to layer, and that turns it off. So there you go, that's what's going on there. Now, we have a tool in our render under gems where we can place a bitmap. It's called Pick Your Gem, but you can use this for anything. So what we can also do is we can come over here, and when we click this button, it takes us to a browser to go find an image. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my archive here, and that was 168, and we'll open that up. Now basically what that does, and that's going to switch us again, and I'm not going to worry about it. What that does is that now allows us to render the exact same image, and you say, well, gee, that's great. What's the difference? And right now there is no difference. But we're doing a whole bunch of stuff for you in the background. Okay, and the beauty of this now is that if we go over to the material editor, you can see that this material right here, this long number, this is the one that was assigned by this builder. Alright, and now what we can do is this has on the diffused layer, it has a bitmap. That's why there's a capital M here. It has a bitmap assigned to the object, and there it is. Now what's cool is we can come over here and increase the multiplier, and then if I hit update, you'll see that I can change the brilliance or the luminance of this image. So now I have some control over this image, and I can hit apply. Right now this object also has a high glossiness to it, and we do that so if you're doing like a pearl or an opal or some image, then it'll be shiny, and we can certainly change it, and I'll show how as we do these videos. So now when I render this, you can already see that it's going to be brighter And so now I'm controlling how bright this image is, and now it's a little livelier, and I actually get to white clouds here instead of kind of just that kind of gray image. So it looks a lot better. So what we can do is we can certainly come out here. Now the other cool thing about doing picture frame is that picture frame maintains the aspect ratio of the picture. If the picture is wider than it is tall, then it's going to leave it at that. If you have a real tall skinny picture, then it's going to leave it at that as well. So it maintains the aspect ratio. Now if we go ahead and so if you can do some neat effects, I'm going to go ahead and bring out I have a little cross section made for like a picture frame. So we'll go ahead and move this over. Let's go snap to mid, and then I'm going to go ahead and go surface sweep 1, curve there, run that around there. It's an obnoxious color. Okay. So now we can come over to ground planes. I'll just pick this black reflective. Okay. And let's go ahead and hit render now. Oops, ground plane problem. Let me stop that real quick. Move this down. Somebody probably saw that. They're like, "Oh, stop your ground plane." But anyway, so now you can do some neat effects. I don't know, if you have a picture of somebody's getting engaged and they're going to get the ring, you could put their picture in there and then render the ring next to it. You could have a lot of fun with some picture frames and so on. So there's how you can do that, and once the object is a material, then away you go. Okay, so you can use this button to assign materials to an object all the time. But as you get going with this, you have to start to understand the mapping coordinates and the different kinds of mapping coordinates so that the picture gets up onto the surface correctly. So let's do another one. Let's say we want to let's lock the ground plane here and toss this away. And let's say we want to do a coin. Alright, so let's go to solid, and we're going to go to cylinder. I'll go to F4. And let's go both directions. Oops, into cylinder. Oh, I guess it doesn't do that on that one. So we'll just come up about so high. Alright, so here's my coin. And we'll bring the ground plane up to that. Alright. Okay. And you're green. Now, what we want to do is, and I'll show you what I have here. I found some nice images of buffalo nickel. So there's the front side and there's the back side. And they're good resolution. You can see this one is 658 by 659, and this one's, well, just about the same. I didn't even realize that. Now, the first and foremost thing that I have here is that the image, okay, is cropped right down to the edge. You can't have a bunch of space hanging out here, because then you have to start to mess around with the map, and it just makes it way harder on you. So the first thing you need to do if you're going to do a map is you want to crop right down to the edge of it, and to do that you're going to have a program. I mean, it could be as simple as Microsoft Paint. You know, you can crop with that tool, or you know, of course I use Digital Goldsmith, our 2D program, but Photoshop Elements, whatever you got, it's fine. So there's the images. Let's go ahead, and in order to map this, what we're going to have to do is I'm going to basically hit explode on this. Okay, so now I have a front, a back, and then I have a depth. And we'll actually put, let's put this depth on that layer, and we'll put this surface on this layer. So we've got this going on. Let's turn off that. There's what we've got going on. Okay. Get the ground plane out of there for now. So let's go ahead and map this. Now, there's ways to map in V-Ray, and I don't use it that much. As a matter of fact, I'm still kind of learning about mapping myself, and so through help with Travis and Chris Hancock and some of those dudes, and Beeve, I talked to Beeve today, and so I'm kind of learning about this, and this is what I know. So anyway, but what I was going to say was that the V-Ray, you can do some mapping in it, and I find it is pretty cumbersome, really. Mapping in general is cumbersome, and so you can also do mapping in Rhino. So that's mainly what I'm going to show here, and I have an example of when you may want to use mapping in V-Ray. So here we go. So what I'm going to do is go pick your gem, and hit go, and then jump out here to let's see, thumbnails. What do we got? Alright, we'll do the front here first. Open, and that's going to assign that right to there. And now watch this work. This should not work, but let's see. So we'll turn this on, and we'll just simply hit render and see what we get. That did, yeah, like I said, no problem. But I'm going to show you how to control this, because actually when I did the buffalo first, of course in my test, it came in just whacked. You know, it wasn't right at all. Pretty good bitmap though, I will say. Alright, so let's go ahead and we're going to select this object and go to Edit Object Properties. I have that mapped in the default matrix configuration as Control T. Now if you've made that trim or something, then I assume you'll have your own keystroke for that, but Control T by default in matrix is Object Properties. So right here is texture mapping. There it is. It comes in usually default like this, and we immediately want to go to custom, and as a matter of fact we want to show the advanced, that's user interface or UI. Okay, so what we can do is we can add a channel. As a matter of fact, I'm going to delete this channel right here, and I'm going to add my own. So I'm going to go add, there it is, channel 1, and here's the type of projection. And we're going to go over all these. There's surface, planar, box, Alright, I want planar. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll go over some of these settings, but right now this is all I want to show for this. Matter of fact, I got to pull this down a little bit so we can get to everything. That way I can scroll. There we go. One thing I will introduce is that the UVW repeat is this is a one-to-one mapping. In other words, it puts the image across here and across here at 1-to-1, and I'll show you what happens if we start to change that. So now what we need to do is show the mapping. Okay, so right here, if you want to see it, it's going to make what they call, and they being McNeil at Rhino, is they called this a mapping widget. I like that name. Alright, so there's our mapping widget, and it's an object, and you can pick it. Okay, I'm picking a lot of things tonight. Alright, this thing is driving me insane. Okay, so Let's turn this off again. And there's the mapping widget. And at this point, we'll go ahead and hit render. And now, since I turned that widget or lined it up, it puts him up correctly. And I will say, this map, you know, this came out really good. I don't have any displacement or bump map or anything. This picture of this coin, this is just straight up rendering that bitmap. Okay. So now if we turn this and hit render again real quick, you'll notice that we don't have anything, including a ground plane, but we don't have anything mapped onto the depth of this. Okay? And I did this on purpose because what we can do is we can choose which coin we like better for the edge. But the cool thing about the mapping on this planer that I did, let's go ahead and switch out of here. Let's pick this. Now when you click this, that's when all the channels come back. By picking planar, what I've done is I said, okay, here's a plane, put the bitmap on it, and whatever this plane is over, shoot that bitmap onto it, and that's what it's going to do. So let's go ahead and let's pick this again, or this object, and let's go pick gem, click here, and it always sends you to our render view folder. And which one was that? Let's go thumbnails again. And we'll put the, alright, 234, okay. Alright, so that's on there. And let's go back and pick this. And we'll add a channel. It's going to be planar again, and I'll show you why. And that's it. Show mapping. There's our new map. Okay, and we'll let it hang out right there. That's just fine. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the looking down viewport. This dock, there we go. Alright, so let's go here. And I'm going to select this mapping widget, and I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go transfer 2D scale. F4, like that. I just made it bigger. Now what this does is it puts that picture a little bit bigger so that it's not right on the edge. I cut into the coin just a little bit. I'll see if I can show you. So now let's go ahead and hit render again. And now what's happening is we're getting the same color on the edge of the coin going down the edge. And that is because I put the same bitmap on, but again, what I did is now right about here, where I sized it, right about there is what's going down the edge of this coin. And that's because the planar map is hitting the top edge of this edge, and wherever it hits it, it's shooting the bitmap down. And I'll show you with a piece of wood. A piece of wood is a great example of when you want to do this. Now, you can do all sorts of things. You could, in theory, match a color here and make a material, but the edge of the coin always looks good if you use colors, you know, similar to the ones going down the edge. Okay, so now we can come over here and click on this surface down here, and once again I'm just going to close this for now. Don't have enough real estate on a movie resolution here. Okay, on out we go to the desktop to snag it to 233, I think. We gotta make sure. Yeah, 233, open. Boom, that's on there. Then we'll select that again, Control T, add a map. It's going to be a planar map again. Okay. And show map. So if you're like, where's my widget? You got to click show mapping. And of course you can hide it too. Okay, so there's this one. Now, the way this works though is if you flip a coin, then the other image, as you rotate the coin, would be right side up, which means it would be backwards on the other one. So you can actually select the widget, okay, and go rotate from F4 here, and you can rotate this widget around like so. And so that just rotated that around there. So now what we can do, let's bring our ground plane back. There we go. Let's go ahead and I'm just going to guess at the center of this thing. Right there is fine. Rotate this around. And now let's hit render. Looks like I didn't need to rotate that, but at least I showed you can rotate a widget. So there's the buffalo side. Cool. Now, here's an interesting thing. Upside down buffalo. As you start to add these materials did not exist until we clicked this and then Matrix made them for us. Okay? If we go over here to the material editor, you'll see a bunch of numbers now. One was the airplane, one was the Indian, one's the edge of the coin, and one is the back, the buffalo. And quite frankly, I could not tell you which one is which. The easiest way to do this, and actually V-Ray gets a little squirrely on these, and I don't mean that in any bad way for our V-Ray friends, but what we can do is, if you want to know which one is which, here's the best way to do it. That's to come over here to Super Select and click Select by Material. Okay? And so then it'll come over here and go, well, as a matter of fact, what it does is it gets rid of the Mustang one because it's not in the scene. Okay? And so we can come over here and go, well, let's click on this one and say, okay, what's this? Alright, that happens to be the depth. Okay? And then we can come over here. Let's go ahead and click off this. So you just have to remember the number. So we'll click on this one and hit OK. There's the top one. Now, at some point I thought I would be cool, and I'm like, well, that's great, you know. Oh, you have to look at the number and remember it. So let's do that again. Right here. I thought, man, I'll be cool. This one's 727. And I'll rename it. I'll rename 727 to, you know, whatever it is. You can't do that if you're going to go in and change anything in here, because it's looking for this material when it does the update. So I kind of did some testing and found out that that doesn't really work. So I don't recommend doing that. You'll just have to deal with these numbers. But anyway, so that's Super Select by number, so you can work on a material. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at a little more stuff about planar, and then we'll introduce also box. So as a matter of fact, let's jump over to box here real quick. So we go to solid and we make a box, and let's go ahead and assign a material. So I'm going to pick my gem here. Oh, something has to be selected. Works a lot faster that way. Now I'm going to go to Drive C, Program Files, Matrix 6.0, Library, and let's go to Matrix Materials, and I'm going to go to Bump Maps. Bump Maps, and hit Thumbnails. And there's one in here that was kind of fun, and it's called Old Wood. Alright, so I'm going to click on it, and now that has that material. Let's turn on our ground plane and then check and see where it is. Alright, we're good to go there. As a matter of fact, did I assign anything ever to this ground plane? White mat, go. Okay. Let's go ahead then, and we'll go ahead and render this just straight up without any Rhino mapping coordinates. And let's see what we get here. I'm gonna hit pause here. Okay, so here's the resulting render, but there's no rhyme or reason. I didn't get the full bitmap on here. It's going the wrong way. I'm not controlling anything about it. I wanted the wood going across this way like a chest or something. So we'll click here, Control T, okay, add a map, and this one is going to be a box map. Okay, so we click that and say Show Mapping. Alright, now let's go ahead and close this for now. And there's the mapping widget. Let me show you this. If you get in here and start messing with your widgets, and I'll leave it at that. Then if you mess this thing up and get this thing all kind of whacked out there, you can go back to here and let's go ahead and click on the object. And as a matter of fact, I was looking for this button, Size to Objects. You'll notice that I had the widget picked, and you can't put the widget to an object if the object isn't selected. So now I pick the object, Size to Object, and that'll go back and fix it. Now my widget's back on the object. Cool. Equalize I'll show you after a while. Don't have a good demo for that right here on this object. Okay, so now we have box, and let's go ahead and render this one. Hit pause here. Okay, so here's the render, and you can see now, yes, I'm getting the wood the way you would expect it, going this way. We also get it going the same way on this one. There's no one this way, one this way. So the box is putting it on like so. So that's what box is for. Now the cool thing is that if you wanted this to be more like a board, you could use planar. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Number one, let's make this more like a board. So I'm going to go ahead and pick poly surface here, and I'm going to 1D scale, and I'm going to make my board thinner, like a board. Okay, and as you can see, the widget followed. Yay. Okay, so now let's also switch from box to planar. So now it's going here. Okay, and let's go ahead and render that and watch what happens. Okay, this is actually a mistake, and I always leave my mistakes in my movies. Everybody always likes that. It's like, yeah, man, I love that mistake you made. anyway, the widget, I didn't notice it in my haste to do my movie. The widget was on this surface or this outline. So this is the wood and it pulls it down here. There's the widget selected right there. So we need to number one, let's see what happens if we hit size to object with planar. Now let's see, yeah, the widget's staying like that. So we need to fix the widget. Our widget needs fixed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here in the side view, and if there's an easy way to do this, then I'm looking forward to learn that. But let's rotate this, and then we'll scale this up. And now, you know, I'm going to try. I'm curious to see if this actually will work. If we select this now that we have it rotated and hit size to object, there's that. So it's a bit big, but let's go ahead and pull it back down. So we'll go here, and we'll go just so that it can be a little bigger, but if you make it smaller, then you're going to get an object that doesn't have the wood on it. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and render this. And you can tell we're already going to be happier. Okay, so the cool thing here, and we'll just let this go ahead and go, is that it projects the wood onto here as a plane, and then when the wood hits the edge, it pulls whatever color is on the edge out along this, kind of like wood is. You know, especially on these ends here, which I should rotate this around a little bit more, but we're going to do more of this. So there's where you can kind of do some planking. Not that there's a huge call for that in jewelry, but this is how we can do all sorts of cool renders though, and you have to understand mapping anyway. So let's go ahead and turn this like this and zoom in a little bit. Now I want to see what material is on this one, so we'll go ahead and go here and say by material, and look, there's no other material assigned to this one in this scene except for white matte, so I know that 545 is this material. Okay, so I can just hit cancel. I don't need to select it, and I'll come over to 545, and let's add a bump map. Now a bump map takes the light and the dark in an image just like matrix art does. Light comes up and dark goes down, so we can add a dimensionality to this object by doing a bump map. So we'll go ahead and hit bitmap here in the type of map that we're going to do. So there's bitmap. Then we come over to the bitmap box and click on the M. And I'm back in the bump maps, and we were doing old wood. So I'm going to use the light and the dark of the old wood to make a bump map. And I'll leave it at a multiplier of 1 and hit apply. Okay, so now let's close the material editor. And we'll come over here now. There's another thing that I want to address here, but I'm going to hit pause while this renders. Okay, so here's this render, and it's getting better all the time. Now this appears to have deeper cracks in it. You can see as the wood comes around here, it definitely looks like the end of a board here. And so we just have more dimension to our project, even along this edge like it's been cut. Okay, so now that's cool. Also, I will say that there's some highlights in here, like this kind of grayish color. And that is because, again, when we assign the material, we used the gems. Pick your gem, and again, these are shiny. These were made for gems. So if we come over to the material editor on 545, we can see under reflection, okay, this under reflection, our highlight glossiness is 1 and our reflection glossiness is 1. And I'm going to just tone these down, and I really don't know how far to go. I'm going to tone both those down, and then we'll do another render. So let's go ahead. Yeah, we'll do another render of this one. Okay, so now here we have even better, because it doesn't have all that shiny. Well, you can not that it was super shiny, but that got rid of those artifacts, and it's even more like old wood now. And you can see it still has that dimensionality to it. Okay, so now let's take this a step further and make this even more dimensional, and we'll go back to the material here. We'll turn off bump and do displacement. Now displacement works similar to bump map, but it will actually change the way the material or the model looks. In other words, when it renders it, not only will it do a bump map, but well, let me show you something here. Let's go back here, and here's the button to recall the last render. And you'll see that this is still, even though this looks very dimensional here, this edge is still perfectly straight. This edge is perfectly straight because this was just a rectangular object. I mean, this was just a NURBS object, and no matter how real it looks here along this edge, it's just perfectly straight, which for wood might be just fine. But what a displacement map is going to do is it's actually going to change the model based on the height, kind of like you did it in matrix art and applied it. It's actually going to increase the surface. Okay, and so I don't have a map selected. So now we'll come back and we'll pick the same object, and I'm not going to do this quite to this degree. Let's take it down to about half that, about 0.5 for the multiplier, and we'll hit apply. So now we'll go ahead and render this one. Okay, so now we're even more dimensional, as if that's possible. And here you can see it roughed up the edge, especially over here, and the edge is up, and it actually comes in where there's this dark groove. Then it comes over here, goes up again where it's lighter, and so that's what displacement map is doing. And one place I used it recently was on this bonsai tree render, and this material here was from one of the bonus tool materials. It was called sandpaper, and then I used another material that just was, a pebble-like material, or bitmap, and you can see where the sand goes up and over the rim here and over here. I did not model this way. This was the displacement map with sandpaper on top of it to make this gravel. And hopefully this shows up in the movie here, because I know you could always look up bonsai tree on the forum and find this render. I know the movie probably compresses this enough where you can't perhaps make out some of these subtle details. Okay, so we've covered a little bit about how to apply the materials, how to apply bitmaps. Of course, as you can see, I always use this button. It makes things just very easy. But let's take a look also at what happens with some of the maps and when do we use. I'll show you the one instance where I actually kind of mess around with the mapping in. Let's go ahead. With the mapping in V-Ray. Okay, now here's what we have here. We have on this model, I have like a fabric type flag material or whatever, or object that I want to do, and I want to show you what happens with these materials on the linen, especially, and what happens when you have a surface that goes vertical like this. So let's go ahead and we'll kind of zoom in on this area right here, and let's go ahead and go to fabrics and actually linens, and I'll pick a nice bright one, maybe this cerulean here, blue, and we'll assign that. And let's go ahead and hit render on that one. Okay, so here's the render of this one, and we got a kind of a crease in here too. I think that's in the object, so I'm going to fix that here in a minute. But check this out. So here comes the linen, and it comes over here, and then here it gets stretched. It gets pulled down and then turns and comes back. And there's no real good method in the Rhino mapping to do this. Planar's not going to do any good. It's probably going to do worse here. And you know, box, some of the ones we haven't done, cylindrical, spherical, none of them are going to work well. So what we really want to do here is come over to the material editor, and this is actually cerulean. This one, I'm going to remove this one. I had two of them set. And if you don't know which one the material is assigned to, you should go over here to super select by material, and you can see it was linen cerulean, not number 1. So I got rid of number 1. You can see I got white matte. If you want to go over there and see that, by material, white matte's the one that's. So this one is not being used in the scene. So we'll go remove. Now be real careful. You might come up here and go, hey, you know, under scene materials, if you right click here, then you can purge unused materials. I don't recommend doing that because V-Ray will sometimes whiff it, and it'll be thinking that this isn't in the scene, and it'll get rid of it. I've seen it get rid of all the materials even though they were assigned in there. So be real careful of purge unused. It kind of can get you. Okay, so back to this. So under cerulean, this is a bump map that's being put on here that makes it look like it's here's the color of the material right here. That's where it gets its color. And there's a bump map on it to make it look like linen. So we'll click this. And you'll notice that it assigns it object XYZ. So it looks at the object, its XYZ information, and it puts this bitmap on right here as a bump map. And this is a weave pattern. Okay, well, what we can do is we can use the explicit map channel for the material, and let's hit update and see what happens. Now you can see, number one, we have to be careful. This got really big, and if we go out and hit render, it's going to be really huge on there, and it's not going to look like linen. We need to up the repeat of how many times. This is a seamless bitmap, by the way. Like this piece goes, and then it matches up over here, so it's seamless. You don't see a pattern where it starts and stops. More talk about those as I go on. I'm going to go ahead and do 40. I kind of messed with this, and I already know that's a good number. This is totally trial and error, and this is why it would be hard to map explicit on different objects, because depending on what they are, you know, this is how big it's going to be, and so you have to kind of play with these numbers. So let's go ahead and hit apply and minimize this, and I'll hit render again here, and then we'll see what we get. Okay, I'm coming back into this render before it's done. I forgot to fix this crease thing, but you can see here what's already going on. This is coming along here, and it's staying the same. It's using the pattern the same, even after it turns, goes down here, and comes back. So the explicit channel, in this case, looks at explicitly at what the object is doing, and then maps it out to the numbers as it contours the surface. So that's definitely what we want here. I'm going to go ahead and hit stop here, and you can see we kind of have an anomaly in this surface here. So I'm going to click on it and go to curve and go to rebuild, and we've got 12 to 4. So I'm going to kind of maintain this ratio. So let's jump this up to 12, and this one up to 36, and hit preview, and that's going to rebuild this surface like so. And now let's go ahead and see what we get as far as that ripple goes. Okay, so here's this render done, and got a bit better with the rebuild. Could probably mess around with that a little bit more. Actually, some of these wrinkles in this fabric kind of lend themselves, but that's definitely way better than it was. So anyway, there's the explicit map channel making this pattern follow the surface a lot better. Okay, so now let's cover the last couple mapping types. I'm going to go ahead and just make a sphere. Okay, and we'll move this up onto the ground plane there. Okay, and let's go ahead and assign a material. And I've got a turquoise repeat, and what I did is I went on the web and found a utility that you can make seamless backgrounds in, or seamless bitmaps, where it kind of takes part of a bitmap and copies it around so that it goes from itself to itself. I mean, without a hard edge, without a seam, and I'll have to cover that in another video. No time in this one, but so here's the in this directory, everybody should have turquoise and maybe turquoise and matrix. I don't know that there's a difference between these. But here's the repeat one, and you can see it is different. Okay? And so let's go ahead and hit open. And there, that's applied. And we'll go ahead and hit render here real quick, like. And this one shouldn't take too awful long. So right straight out of the builder, this actually works pretty good because it's using the object XYZ here, and so you can see this is shiny. It's got a nice shine to it. The bitmap will come up to a point here because that's the way the surface is made in Rhino, and unfortunately without a quad mesh available, or what's called n-gons, we're not going to get a mesh where it'll map all the way around this thing. It's going to come up to this pinch point here. But what we can do is come over here to texture mapping again and say add, and let's go for spherical. Okay, and we'll say show mapping, and there's our widget. And we can immediately, if we want more pattern to this, we can come down to the UV repeat and say, all right, give me. Well, I better render this so we know what it looks like. It's going to look very similar to the other one. So let's go ahead and render this one. Okay, so it is similar. It's a little bit different the way it mapped it out, but we still are coming up to the top here. Looks like if we put some holes in this, we'd have a really nice bowling ball. But anyway, if we come over here and go to the surface, Control T, and we come down here, and let's up this to actually 3 by 3. Okay, and we'll hit render again. Okay, so here's our render now, and you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, so that's starting to make a pattern there. That's not best case scenario, but it is nice over here, and this is real neat. The fact that we have more modeling in this, and it's showing different sections of it. So what you could do is you could do 3 around this way, and then just do 1 or 2 this way to get rid of this pattern up here. So these do not have to be the same. In other words, if we click this, and unfortunately I have no way of knowing, I just need to guess here. I'm going to put this one at 1, and then close this and hit render again. Okay, so now you can see we have 1 up here, and then it's coming around and has a different effect coming around this other way, but we don't have the 1, 2, 3 up here again. So it all depends on what you want to play with those numbers, what they're doing. And I will say you can also mess around with that if you like the mapping. Let's go ahead and get rid of the widget here, and let's pick another one here and here. And I do have another one. Here's this jade, and I made a seamless one of it. This one was with a program that actually I was just playing with, and so it was a demo. So this one might say demo on it. We'll see. I don't know which one it is. But anyway, if we go into let's go see what that number was called. So we go buy material. That's going to be 8762. Okay, 8762. So we'll go over here, and where's that one at? 8762. There's that particular one. And if we go over to the map right here on the diffuse channel, that's putting a bitmap as the main shader. If we hit update, you can see, yeah, it's going to say demo. But this one is a seamless one. The whole point is that we can do a repeat here as well. So we can go 2 and 2 here as well under the bitmap. You can see this one's on explicit. And let's go ahead and hit render. I think I still have some other mapping going on, but that's interesting. Here's the kind of the seamless thing, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5, 6, because there's 3 and I did 2 on this one. So now we're starting to get, I wouldn't try to mix these. That looks like that's not too good an idea. But keep in mind, if you just do on a new object, if you do this one, you can go into the material editor again under the diffuse where the map is, and you can increase the number of iterations that it has as well. Okay, so now just to show the other mapping types, I'm going to make a cylinder from F4 and come on up this way. And if you were going to do I did the matrix beer can render for kind of a joke the other day. You would do cylindrical mapping for something like that, but let's go ahead and stick with probably the turquoise one. So let's go pick your gem here, and let's go to turquoise repeat. There's that. Select here, Control T. We're going to add a map. This one's going to be just cylindrical. Okay, and we're at 1 to 1. Yep, show mapping. There's the widget. Now, the widget is following, and we can certainly say size to object, and boom, down it goes. Okay, equalize. The map isn't stretched like this, so if I hit equalize, it'll actually come out here, and this is the natural format of the map, not tall and squished like this. Okay, so there's the true map, and that's what equalize does. But I'm going to pick size to object because we need to cover up the object. Okay, so now let's go ahead and hit render. Okay, so here's this render, and with cylindrical, you can see what's happened. It's put this up around here on the cylinder, done exactly what it should do, wrapped it around this way. But cylindrical is just addressing the outside here, and when it hits the top, just like our planer on the wood one that we did, it's hitting the edge and it's smearing it across, and then it's just going across over here on the top. Now that aside from maybe this weird shape here, which I cannot control at all, that may be very well what this looks like as you cut through this material. So that's really kind of cool. So that's just cylindrical. But if we pick here and go over and pick cylindrical with a cap, or capped cylindrical, then we'll go ahead and hit render on this one. And what it does is it goes ahead and it takes the same map and picks a part of it and maps it up on here, so that it doesn't have any rhyme or reason how it matches, but it takes this map and puts it up on this face. So you get that, and this looks good too. So the other cool thing that I found that you can do is if we just take a surface here and make, let's just make a surface like so. Okay, and we'll move this up above the ground plane a little bit so they don't fight. You don't want these to intersect perfectly. That wouldn't render well at all. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and say add a map, planer, and show mapping, and there's our planer map right there. So now if we come down actually also and go a tile, of let's say 2 by 2. Alright, so there's that, and then let's go ahead and assign turquoise repeat like that, and then we'll render this one. Okay, this is cool. You can see that this doesn't have any hard edges, so that it is seamless, but it does have a pattern because the thing eventually has to repeat. There's no doubt about that. But what I found is kind of cool is you can take this mapping widget and you can come over here and let's 2D scale it kind of from the center of this thing. And we'll pull this widget out. And then we'll also rotate the widget so that it's not just lined up perfect, in a perfect world. Let's take this down a little bit. Alright, so now when we come over and render this, we now have a bit more kind of randomness to this. It's still repeating. You can kind of see it here, and we could certainly move this widget over a little bit more, but at least I get more information, more definition and change of pattern than if I just had one image where I didn't have a seamless tile. And it still has a lot more veining, but doesn't repeat so much. So there's my theory on that anyway. Okay, the last couple mapping tools that I'll do here. This is a standard ground plane, this gray one that I've been using. And let's unlock it. And over under ground planes we have 2 buttons. One is, if we click this, this is 1-to-1. So this is pick your ground plane, and 1-to-1 means that it's going to map that ground plane item, image, 1-to-1 on this. And so let's go ahead and with this selected we'll pick here, and we'll just go ahead and pick something in this folder. It really doesn't even matter. Let's pick this one. Okay, so now if we render this, you can see that's 1-to-1, and there it is. if we pick the other one, go, and what was that? Malachite. Yep. Boom. There we go. Now this is going to be tiled like crazy, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's got, there it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop that. Those are all little pictures of that malachite. So now, if we come over, we need to see which one this is. So by material, 5446. So we select, no, we don't need to select it. We come over here, 5446 right there. And then we go over to the map on the diffuse channel, and we can see that the repeat is 40. And let's do, let's go 4 by 2. And let's hit render on that. Okay, so there's 2 here and 4 going across here. So there's no way of knowing with the image how many you want, so we just pick a number, and then you can go in and change this however you want. And if you have an object that is seamless, then you won't get this hard start and stop. But anyway, that's these 2 buttons right here and how those work as far as assigning material. And I guess that's it for this one.